let's take a look at coordinate conversion. To establish a relationship between polar and rectangular coordinates, let the polar axis coincide with the positive x-axis and the pole with the origin as shown. Because xy lies in a circle of radius r, it follows that r squared equals x squared plus y squared. Moreover, for r is greater than 0, the definitions of the trig functions imply that tangent of theta is y over x, cosine of theta is x over r, and sine of theta is y over r. And so the polar coordinates r theta and the rectangular coordinates xy are related as follows. So notice using this cosine theta of x over r, so polar to rectangular, we can multiply r by both sides, and so it's x equals r cosine theta. For sine of theta, if we multiply by r to both sides, then y equals r sine theta. Then from rectangular to polar, if we have a point xy, we know that we can use tangent of theta equals y over x, and then we can use r squared equals x squared plus y squared in order to find r. So those are some important points to know when we're doing coordinate conversion as well as we're doing equation conversions. So let's first do polar to rectangular conversions. Convert root 3 pi over 6 to rectangular coordinates. So we know, first of all, so this is polar, r is root 3, and then theta is pi over 6. And so what we're going to use is we want to go rectangular to, polar to rectangular. So we're going to use the x equals r cosine theta, and we're also going to use the y equals r sine of theta. And so we can plug these in until we can find our x and y. So x equals r, so that's square root of 3, cosine of theta. Theta is pi over 6. Then we're also going to use y. Y equals square root of 3, and then sine of pi over 6. So we have root 3, cosine of pi over 6. Pi over 6, that is going to be root 3 over 2. And so this ends up simplifying to 3 over 2. That's our x. Then for y, that's root 3 pi over 6. That's going to be sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So y equals root 3 over 2. So our rectangular coordinate is going to be 3 over 2 and root 3 over 2. So try this example here. Convert 2 pi to rectangular coordinates. All right, if you tried this out, you should have found that x is -2 and y is 0. So let's now go the other direction. Let's go from rectangular to polar. So convert -1, 1 to polar coordinates. So we know that this is x and this is y. So we want to use, so we need to remember to use, tangent of theta is y over x. We also need to remember that r squared equals x squared plus y squared. So we're going to use, first of all, use tangent of theta equals y over x, the one that we put up here. So tangent of theta equals 1 over -1. And so, because theta, this is negative, right? We have tangent of theta equals -1. And so we want to take the arc tangent. And because it's -1, and we also want to rotate in the positive direction, we need to be careful of which one we take. So because, remember the restriction for tangent, it's only in these two quadrants, arc tangent, sorry. So we're looking at pi. Theta will be pi plus arc tangent of -1. So therefore pi plus negative pi over 4 is negative pi over 4. And so therefore we know that theta is going to be 3 pi over 4. Next we need to find r, right? We're trying to find the polar coordinate. So we're going to use r squared equals x squared plus y squared. And so we know x and y. So this is going to be r equals the square root of -1 squared plus 1 squared. So that is going to be 1 plus 1, or square root of 2. So that is our r. So now the polar coordinate we have is root 2 and 3 pi over 4. So try this next example. Convert 0, 2 to polar coordinates. Now, yes, that is not a typo, that you do have a 0 here, but where is that on the unit circle? So see if you remember where that is, and that'll help you out. So you do have 2 over 0, and remember it's undefined at that point, which is okay because there are undefined points for tangent on a unit circle. So that happens at pi over 2. So another thing to look at is you need to look at whether this sign is positive or negative. So it's positive, it's pi over 2, and if you find that you have a negative value here for your y, then you know it's going to be 3 pi over 2. So just to kind of keep that in mind if you see that. So you would find that this polar coordinate is going to be 2 pi over 2.